So glad you've come to this monitoring and evaluation channel, M&D Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. If you're here for the first time, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I post regular updates on a regular basis. Today we'll be looking at monitoring and evaluation of agriculture projects. I'm so glad we're going to be considering this because there are so many agriculture projects around the world. And agriculture is what really helps us with our food needs. Okay? So the outline of this training is what is monitoring and evaluation. I'm going to explain this to you very briefly because I have so many videos that explains this. Then I want us to dive deep into understanding the theory of change for agriculture projects, common key performance indicators of agriculture projects, steps in monitoring and evaluation of agriculture projects, reporting agriculture projects, and then I have a special offer for you, my friends. Okay? So as usual, I have the timestamps in the description below. Please make good use of those timestamps because if you don't want to be watching certain parts of this video, you are at liberty to skip the parts of this video to get to the actual section you want to watch. So please make sure you use those timestamps in the description below. So now let's get started. Oh, one last thing. I have these two wonderful ebooks. They are free of charge. The link is in the description below. If you want to do some reading, please download the Logical Framework Analysis Step-by-Step Guide and also the M&D Beginner's Guide for 2020. So please download those books. They are in the description below. All right. So now let's get started to this course. It's a short training video, whatever you would like to call it. So what is monitoring and evaluation? Well, you see, guys, I like to think of M&D as a process, really. It's done for so many reasons, but the main reason, it's helping us learn. It's helping us improve ourselves. It's helping us answer the questions of what, who, why, and when. So when you talk of monitoring, this is really a continuous activity. By the way, you see M&D is made up of two words. You've got the monitoring part and then you've got the evaluation part. So the monitoring is a continuous process that is done throughout the project cycle. And the whole essence is that you see in a project you have different activities that you are doing. So your whole intention is to actually analyze whether those activities are going according to plan. So when you're monitoring, you're actually tracking. Okay, you're actually tracking against what was planned. So now I've given some examples there of what is normally tracked, and I would like us to look at examples related to agriculture because agriculture really is what this video is about. In future, I'm going to release other videos that talk of M&D in other sectors. So now, some of the things you may be tracking when you're monitoring is the trainings of farmers in entrepreneurship methodology. That's just an example. Okay, so you want to know the number of trainings that farmers have engaged in to do with entrepreneurship. It could be because the project itself has been designed to empower farmers in the entrepreneurship methodology so that they can use their entrepreneurial skills to generate more money. Then you've got another indicator you could be tracking is the number of drought-resistant seedlings planted in a hectare of land per day. So you've seen that due to climate change, there may be need to have such interventions because due to different parts of the world, the rain patterns are different. They may be decreasing, they may be increasing. But in the event when it's actually decreasing, that's when you realize that drought is just knocking on your door, and that can prevent your yields. So perhaps This project has been designed to give farmers an opportunity to plant seedlings that are drought resistant. Okay, so I'm sure you get the point. So now what about the evaluation? What is evaluation? Evaluation, dear friends, is an in-depth assessment. Okay, it's really an in-depth research that is done in order to ascertain whether the planned activities have actually achieved some kind of result. So that is what all these projects really do. They are there for a purpose. They are there to implement activities that will bring about some overall short to medium term change or even a long term change. So now I've given an example there that as a result of the trainings of farmers in entrepreneurship methodology, income of farmers increased by 50%. So if you do an evaluation and you want to see what the impact has been as a result of training farmers in entrepreneurship skills, you will then discover that it could be that income of farmers has increased based on your findings. But sometimes it's not even, of course, that may be the desire of the project to increase income. But we know that for sure that even if you implement a project, it's not always what you are seeking to achieve will actually happen. Because sometimes, again, this indicator for income may not even increase, it may actually decrease, but you had been implementing this project for 2 to 3 years or even up to 5 years. So there are different types of evaluations that are conducted. You've got the baselines, you've got the midterm evaluation, you've got the endline evaluation. So all these are types of evaluations which are done a lot of times. And I sometimes feel that even mentioning them is it's just like a by the way thing because everybody knows this, or at least everyone should know that evaluations come in 3 stages of the project, but it could even become in more stages, but these are the 3 main stages. All right, so now when it comes to agriculture projects, I would want to tell you one thing, friend, that in the 10 years plus I've implemented M&E, I've dealt a lot with agriculture projects, and they all speak the same language, regardless of whether you're in Asia or whether you're in Latin America or even Africa. They all speak the same language. The issue is that these projects have been designed in a way that they want people's lives to change, people's livelihoods to improve. So when we talk of livelihoods, we are simply saying that a person's life should be satisfying. They should be able to have access to better living conditions, better housing, better food nutrition, all those things. So the starting point is really how much money are these farmers making? And in many cases, farmers, there are some really exceptional farmers around the world. In fact, there are many. But the truth is that even though there are many, good producers out there, there are also many farmers who are struggling. So one of the things that these agriculture projects do is to improve the income levels. So in agriculture projects, the theory of change is ultimately about improving the lives and well-being of community members. And in most cases, the only way a project can achieve that is by empowering farmers so that they can make more money and improve their livelihoods. So that is what these projects do. So I've given some example in this image just so that you get to fully understand what I am talking about. So a project may be designed in such a way. Let's say, first of all, before you design a project, you obviously want to know, identify the problem that a community is facing or that farmers are facing. So you'd identify that farmers are facing a problem of finding markets so that they can be able to improve their incomes and get better living. So your project is designed, you design a project and you design it in such a way that you're going to be training farmers on not only identifying lucrative markets, but also in helping them produce crops that the markets can buy. Because when your produce is attractive in appearance and even in price, then the market will definitely absorb the produce. So you train farmers, you undergo trainings of farmers. So after you train those farmers on how to find lucrative markets and also on how to plant the crop correctly, then the farmers, after they've been trained, they'll start to plant the crop, which it could be a drought resistant seed, in the correct way, in the correct manner, following the strict guidelines and instructions that is required. So after they plant, of course, the harvesting is done, and because they followed things the right way and because they were trained, you're obviously going to expect that the harvest will be good and lucrative. So this is where it gets more interesting, guys, because when you have such a good harvest, what that means is that when the farmers harvest this produce and sell it, their income is going to improve. So now what does this do to the community? It does so many good things, because when you have improved incomes, that in itself means better living conditions for the farmers. It also means that they'll have better access to healthcare because they have more money. They'll have better access to housing and also education for their children. So that is really how these agriculture projects have been designed over the years. Ultimately, it is how much crop the farmers can produce and how much of that crop they've produced can be sold to lucrative markets at a very competitive price. So now, what really are the indicators used in agriculture projects? In most cases, because I've talked about the theory of change, but now let's try to understand what these indicators are. So the indicators, the most common indicators I've seen, we are talking of agriculture productivity, because ultimately you want the farmers to produce more. And when they produce more, that should attract better pricing. Because, okay, of course, when they produce more, but even when they produce more, the quality of their produce should be attractive to any buyer around the world, whether locally or internationally. It should be attractive. So once that is done, then you see that you'll be forced, it will just come automatically. You'll be forced now to start tracking the amount of income generated by farmers. How much United States dollars are they generating? All right, very good question. But I've always talked about about this to many of my friends and people who come to the M&D channel, that when it comes to key performance indicators, there are so many indicators that are being used to track whether progress has been achieved or not. And I always like to point to one special website where you can find all the world indicators, and that is the World Bank. I'll leave the link to the World Bank's website. Okay, or if you want, you could go straight to Google, just type World Bank indicators. Then Google is going to show you exactly how many of those indicators are being tracked, because the World Bank is tracking so many indicators. So now my area of interest when I went to the World Bank site was actually to look at the agriculture related indicators. So these are the indicators that are used in agriculture. All right. And even on their website, they give you exactly how these indicators are derived. So let's briefly talk about these indicators, because they actually affect all of us, and they affect especially those economies that are highly dependent on agriculture for their GDP. So take, for instance, this indicator on agriculture irrigated land, percentage of total agricultural land. So what this is measuring, if you look at the first indicator, it's actually measuring of the total agricultural land, which how much is actually irrigated. Okay, so many of these farmers, because in a year they may not be receiving rain throughout the year. So in order to keep their business still running, they may be using irrigation machinery. Okay, so this indicator in itself is very important to track, because it gives you an indication of how much potential a farmer has in a year. Okay, and also it gives you that understanding of, if this farmer is able to use irrigation equipment, then his capacity to grow different crops throughout the year is really high. And it also helps us understand, let's say, if you're a policymaker and you realize that many of your farmers are not using irrigation equipment, then as a policymaker, you'd want to find a way to have your farmers gain access to irrigation equipment, so that they have, steady flow of income throughout the year. There's also another indicator there, agricultural land, percentage of agricultural land of the total land area. Okay, you see that indicator. You can already see why it's being tracked, because the question is, if production is low in a certain community, the question is why. So some of the reasons could be that these farmers are not fully utilizing their land. And as a result of that, that creates low productivity compared to how much food is being demanded by the markets. So there are so many indicators there. There's also the crop production index. If you can see that, that's just an index figure for between 2004 2006. Okay, I must mention that I didn't take time to understand what it is, but I am familiar with why they come up with these index values. All right, you've got the crop production index, you've got the poverty index value, and all those things. So These indicators can help you fully understand how to monitor and evaluate your agriculture project. Or if you are planning for an agriculture project, you could do well to incorporate some of these indicators. Okay, these are other indicators as well. All right, you've got the livestock production index. Okay, you've got the land area, food production index. All those things are very important indicators when it comes to tracking performance of agriculture projects. There is need to always develop indicator reference sheets always. Guys, I have to tell you one thing. It's not just enough to list the indicators, but you need to develop the reference guides. These indicator reference sheets or indicator reference guides, these are guides that just explain to you for each and every indicator what do these indicators actually mean? What are they? What are you measuring using these indicators, and how are they calculated? And when should they be calculated, and when should the data be collected? So these reference guides need to be developed in every project. And in many cases, it's best to develop them at planning stage, because by then when you've planned, then the time when you actually implement your M&D activities, you have a reference point in which to make genuine conclusions. So what are the steps in monitoring and evaluation of agriculture projects? I have mentioned this so many times, guys, and it's not hard. But in case you're here for the first time, yeah, very much, I can say, fortunate to visit this M&D channel, because the first step, the steps are really easy. The first step is to read and understand the project document. These project documents have a lot of information that can help you fulfill your function of monitoring and evaluation. So now, in every project document, guys, there is what is known as the logical framework matrix. So you can, if you don't have time to read this project document, you can simply go to the section that outlines the logical framework matrix. And in that logical framework matrix, it will list all the indicators that this project is going to be measuring. Okay, so you simply copy and paste those indicators, or if you have the patience, write them down on a piece of paper. Okay, and then after you've gotten these indicators, try to make sense out of them. Try to derive the maximum benefit in fully understanding what these indicators are. What do they mean to the project? After you've gotten these indicators, the next step now is to develop data collection tools. All right. So ultimately, wherever you go, whichever sector you choose to do M&D, the whole point is that you need to collect data. That is the whole point with M&E. It's data collection. So now, in order to do this data collection, you need data collection tools. And these tools can be developed by you yourself. You don't need to hire an expert to develop them for you. You can do it yourself. Take, for instance, you saw that indicator called average income of farmers. So are you telling me it's difficult to develop a tool that will just collect data on the amount of income farmers make? Are you sure it's difficult to develop such a tool? I can tell you it is not difficult at all. All you need to do is understand these indicators. So if there's an indicator looking at the amount of income of a farmer, get that information and then formulate a question. Like, let's say if your data collection tool is a questionnaire, simply just formulate a question like, what is your monthly income? And that question should be directed to a farmer. You see how easy it is. Then the next step is to carry out data collection. In most cases, in my view, I have seen that when it comes to data collection, there are two ways you can collect this data. You can collect it straight from the farmers themselves if it's an agriculture project. But if you don't feel the need to go to a farmer and interview them one-on-one, you can simply use secondary data. And when we say secondary data, it's a type of data whereby somebody else, okay, let's say somebody else did a research on the level of income of farmers in the community where your project is being implemented. So all you will do, you will get that report and get the information from that report. So you're not necessarily the one who went to the field to collect, but you're using someone else's work to draw conclusions. So whenever you're doing that, always ensure to reference. You reference it. You reference the report and attribute that work to the owner. Then after carrying out data collection, you need to now enter the data, analyze it, and report on it. All right. Make sure that whatever you're entering, whatever you're analyzing, this is data that is answering the question of key performance indicators. Then the next step is to submit the first draft of the report to stakeholders. All right. So if it's a big report, that's what you should do. But if these are routine reports that don't need stakeholder attention, simply just submit it to your manager in the same organization so that management now can approve it. But in many cases, what will happen is when you submit your first report, there will always be comments. And the truth of the matter is, don't lose heart or don't feel bad if so many comments come. Because one thing I've learned is that the more comments that come on your report, the better. Because the trick is that you should answer every comment. If somebody does not like the way you've structured the report, and these are important stakeholders, simply make those changes. Okay, so that at the end of the day, when you come to resubmitting the M&D report, it's a report which would have undergone thorough reading by all stakeholders. And then the comments would have definitely been corrected on you by you based on the comments that were coming in. You see the point? So that's how you have the projects, agriculture projects, monitored and evaluated. So it's not hard at all. Okay, so like I earlier mentioned, you need to always report on the key performance indicators of that project. Okay, so it's not just agriculture projects, but it is all projects around the world. Now, what is the standard structure for reporting? I have always been asked this question, and quite frankly, I am happy to answer it many times because at the end of the day, you want something to communicate to people. When you have a good report, it also tells those people that you had taken a lot of effort to generate something of high quality. But one thing you should always remember is to have a report that is well structured. and that answers the important questions. So the standard reporting way is simply the one I've shown right in front of you. You have the executive summary, you've got the introduction, the methodology, results, discussion, up to the annex. Okay. Oh, by the way, I have a course that I'm running called How to Write an Effective Research Paper. Please find time to enroll in that course. It's been hosted on Udemy. It will teach you exactly how to do these things. Okay? I urge you to enroll in that course. So now let's get back to this video. You see, the executive summary, sometimes also called the abstract, it just gives you a basic summary of the whole report. Okay? Some people, and I think this is a very important section. It's one of the most important sections because if people don't have time to read your whole report, they would rather go to the executive summary just to get something summarized, easy to understand. Then if they want further detail, they'll read the report in detail. Okay. So usually when you're writing the executive summary, I always tell my friends, clients, that it's always important to have the executive summary written last, because the whole idea is that it just summarizes the executive summary summarizes the whole report. So you cannot write it first before you've actually written the main body. You see the point? So you have to write the main body of the report, the findings, everything, methodology, discussion. After you've done that and summarized that full package, you can now commence writing the executive summary. Okay, so the introduction is what the M&D report is about. Okay, so you need to understand that when you're doing this introduction, you're simply introducing to the reader what the report is about, okay, what was being done, what was being monitored, evaluated, all those things should be included. I've given a sample introduction. Actually, guys, I would also want to mention that, research and monitoring and evaluation, they are very similar, guys. So even if you're doing a thesis, if you're at the university and you're doing a thesis, you might want to use the format that I've presented to you today, which I'm saying should be used in an M&D report, but you can actually use it even in your thesis. So in your introduction, try to make it brief. I like it brief because many of the readers, including yourself, I'm sure you have fallen into this before. If a certain report is answering a certain question, you don't want to waste time reading introduction method. You want to go straight to the findings. So what that means is that if you're doing the introduction, other sections, just make them brief. Okay? You don't need to make it 2 pages writing an introduction. You can even make it half a page or even 1 page. It's fine. So the methodology is going to tell your readers how you conducted the monitoring and evaluation. They are very interested to know this part. So if, for instance, I'll give you an example. If your project is running, your agriculture project is running maybe somewhere in East Asia, let's say, just for example's sake, okay, not that I have any idea whether there are agriculture projects running in this certain region, okay, but let's say Hong Kong, there's an agriculture project running there, okay. So you simply mention that our M&D activities were conducted in Hong Kong, and then you mention how many farmers you interviewed in Hong Kong. You also mention where you got your data. Were you interviewing them, or you simply used research papers that were done by other people? Okay. You also need to mention the methods. Of course, you mentioned the methods of data collection, but how did you also analyze the data collection? This is where you also mention what softwares you used, if you used any software. These days, M&D is becoming advanced. People are using all kinds of platforms to implement it. So if you are using digital platform, mention it in your methodology that you were using digital platform to collect your data, to analyze it, and also to report on it. You also want to talk about the results. So remember, the results just simply report what the key performance indicators are. So those key performance indicators, they'll need their own respective values. And it's always nice, you see, it's always nice when you're reporting results to always compare those results to the baseline value. So let's say when you did the baseline survey, average income of farmers was only $100 per month. Then after the project finishes, you find out that their income has increased to $500 per month. So what you report in your results, you simply say that the results show that income levels of farmers increased from $100 to $500. Okay. Then you also have the discussion section where you simply discuss the findings and try to make sense about them to the reader. So your conclusion, this is very, very important, guys. And I've seen conclusions which are quite strange, to tell you the truth, whereby you are reading this conclusion, it's 2 pages, and then you can't really even conclude what they are concluding. A conclusion, guys, should be brief and straight to the point. And then you need to also explain, you need to answer the objectives. Let's say that the objective of your M&E activity was to measure the poverty levels of the farmers in Hong Kong. Okay? You simply conclude, you just say no, the percentage of the poverty levels. Okay, anyway, let me not even use, I mean, Hong Kong is a great city. Let's use a country in Africa, let's say in Ethiopia, since not that I don't really know how it is right now, but just as an example. So you simply say the poverty levels in this country are at this percentage, and it ends there. Okay, it doesn't need to be 2-3 pages of conclusion. No, that's too long. Then make sure to have your references. Attributing other authors is important, especially if you used their work. Then in your annex, you include things like the data collection tools you used, work plans, the budgets, and also you can also choose to include the strategy if you want. Okay, so what is my special gift to you guys? I'm so glad you had the time to listen to this long video. So what is my special gift to you? I have a course running, a very good course, very excellent. This is my best course on Udemy, okay? It's called How to Set Up a Monitoring and Evaluation System Step by Step. It was just released a few days ago, and I'm so glad to be selling it. It's valued at close to $100, but you can get a very good discount, very excellent discount, over 80% off, simply by using the coupon I'll provide to you in the link. So if you want to enroll in this course, guys, in the description of this video, there is a coupon code and there's a course link. I want you to access this course, please. And I'm telling you, you're going to be very good at monitoring and evaluation. I promise you that, because this is a very good course. and I have a lot of students every day who are enrolling in my courses hosted on Udemy. So please do well to try out this course, use the coupon code and derive the maximum benefit. So this is where I end. I hope you enjoyed this video on monitoring and evaluation of agriculture projects. I've been your host, Coach Alexander. Until we meet again, see you on the other side. Bye.